Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the Invincible Iron Man issue 2 2022. Yeah, alright. I like the cover, it's beautifully made of showing like Iron Man and Ironheart fighting, and it's like one-on-one against Ironheart. Now this cover is beautiful, but it really doesn't do justice of what's kind of going on in here. They're more kind of partners and having their disagreements about the Mandarin's rings, and that's about it. But I still enjoyed this issue as it's showing us kind of what's going on and kind of the next kind of phases of whoever's gunning for Tony's kind of plans. So we pretty much start back off from where he was in the gutter, talking about like I never thought I'd literally be in the gutter in Hell's Kitchen, and that some days the bright lights in the tunnel vision are a train, but tonight they're his hero Ironheart. As she's talking about how she did not expect him to be like #1 trending on TikTok, and Tony's like, I have no idea what that is, but it sounds awful. Talking about how you don't really want to be the internet's main character, and that his heart is arrhythmic. It's like, ooh, okay, that sucks. And he wants, instead of going to a hospital, to get to his armor. And as she pretty much gets him to his lair, they'd evidently been talking about the rings, and she's like, I don't want to talk about them, especially not in your state. And he's like, listen, it's gone badly for everybody who wears them. Yeah, well, I'm not everybody. And I kind of get both sides on this. I really like that Tony's like, bad shit's gone on with people who have had these rings, but Riri's like, just give me a chance to kind of mess with these because I got ideas for them. And I understand that Tony's kind of looking at her that she's like going completely thunder fist into a light socket. Granted, and he can have an effective argument with that because of the kind of strange shit that can go on with him. But I do like that they're kind of giving her the chance to kind of prove herself with it. And we see him put on his chest plate and has Boss pretty much use the pacemaker in it, and that Boss confirms that there's a toxin detected and deploying the countermeasures, even though Boss is like, hey, you should go to a hospital. He's like, hey, give me and Riri privacy. And she's like, huh, toxin, So I'm glad we are shown that Tony did not fall off the wagon and that somebody poisoned his ass, and that we'll have to see how it kind of works out. And it's funny, she's talking about his digs, and he's like, yeah, I bought up a lot of shit, and I still have room in that warehouse for the rings. And she's like, no dice. I don't roll out wearing them, and trust me, they're in a safe location. And she asks if he's going to correct the world on this story. He's like, I don't know the world anything. This is between me and who's ever gunning for me. I need some sleep. And then we shift over and we see pretty much whoever's behind this with all the shit that's going on because of how this looks, that Tony fell off the wagon, that everybody thinks it's a substance abuse crisis, that it's affecting like the markets and financial analyst stuff, mainly like Stark Unlimited, and that Stark doesn't have any juice left, bringing up the whole stuff with his residential neighborhood explosion, some dude being like, yeah, when I see a dude who controls a nuclear-powered suit of armor lying wasted on the street, I kind of miss the Registration Act. I'm like, sure, I understand accountability and wanting to keep heroes accountable for their actions and everything, but you kind of got to watch out what happened with, like, the Registration Act. And then we see Andy Bong, which is nice to see him back in again as the CEO of Stark Unlimited, pretty much telling them that Stark is retired from the company. He's got no really control over it, reminding the shareholders that he hasn't been in control for some time, and that the person who is behind this is like, this is too good, much more fun than I'd hoped. And we see that as he's Andy is still kind of laying that in. We then see the Living Laser, which is kind of nutty. Like, granted, I've known about him and how kind of like usually he's like lower on the list, but I'm like glad to kind of see him used into effect. He's like, where is my jailer? Where is Tony Stark? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, friend? And I love Tony taking issue. It's like, I'm not retired. How dare he? You're literally in a hammock, old man. It's like, I do like their banter and their back and forth of like their mentor and mentee relationship, and how, yes, Riri is a hero in her own right, but like you've always got that mentor and that kind of like teacher figure that'll always kind of like question and you hit them for being too young, they hit you for being too old, but it's always somewhere in the kind of middle ground. And then, of course, Riri's like, is that the living laser? Yep, sure looks like it. I bet they try and blame this on me, too. Where's Tony Stark? I can't imagine why. Like, the timing, I love how, like, the dialogue works out, and that he's like, I gotta suit up, and then he needs to get help getting out of the hammock. It's like, you could try and say that that's like an old person kind of thing, but getting out of a hammock is kind of fucked up. And I mean, granted, he is dealing with like being cured of like a toxin thing. And then we see them kind of flying off, seeing Tony's armor kind of a little bit more busted up than Riri's. And that when he needs to create, he needs to be alone. That's why Tony Stark has often lived such a solitary life. It's Iron Man who seems to attract all the friends, and that he says that that's kind of weird, and that not that I'm not grateful for Riri, Rhodes, and the Avengers when it's time to put the armor into action. I was like, yeah, cool. I do kind of like him being like, yeah, when he's creating, he kind of wants to be in his own headspace. I really kind of get that. And then when he's like doing stuff as Iron Man, he usually gets help from people and everything. Let's see that, and then they're kind of flying off. I love it. He tells her not to underestimate the living laser, and she's like, even though his name is the living laser, and he's like, yes. And that they've got 911 calls coming from the old Avengers mansion, which is a nice little thing. I kind of like that a lot. Saying that this is like a theme hotel now, and that there's probably lots of civilians. Let's not try to make the news. I think that'll be my new battle cry. I just love the kind of snark and everything. And then living lasers burning, melting Iron Man's statue on the Avengers thing, pretty much saying Earth's mightiest hero is my ass. He is not a happy camper. Tony calling that rude, that he doesn't have a lot of statues. You don't have any other statues. I think that's his line. And then the living laser's like, what did you do to me kind of shit. He's like, I don't know what you're fucking talking about. Somebody's gunning for me, and I think you're caught up in it, as he kind of like shields himself. Living laser's like, yeah, that's funny, says the guy caught up in it to a guy you captured and experimented on. Real cute. And he pretty much breaks through Tony's shield that he had, and Riri kind of gets hit with the lasers and everything. It's like, ah, shit. Tony is not happy about that. Pretty much punches him, saying that you're going to kill somebody. And Laser pretty much calling him out as being a mad scientist, saying that like the money and power just made you crazy. He's like, huh. Interesting. How's that kind of going? As they kind of had a kind of blast, which I like the use of color where the living laser is purple and his stuff is kind of blue and it kind of blows out. Asking what he was after, thinking he would add his power to his suit, and just blasting into his armor, cutting his faceplate surgically with like surgical precision. And he's like, he needs kind of weapons from boss, but like the power levels are minimal. What do we have? Postmates, can we order takeout to entice negotiations? Tony pretty much bringing up that he's framed and they're out to destroy me, and he thinks that they're using him. So then Riri pops up and pretty much knees him in the ribs and saying if he's going to kill one armored person, why not two? And kind of hits her with the lasers, and she's like, yeah, the gloves are coming off, and then asking what she's done as she's utilizing the Mandarin's rings and pretty much hacks into the living laser's brain to kind of figure out kind of what's going on. And it's like, you have to always be careful with that kind of shit and to not use that power just willy-nilly. And he brings up that she lied to him, but she's like, no, I didn't. I said the rings were safe, and they are. Now I'm using the rings to enter your mind. Parks, do yourself a favor and don't resist. As we then see that he had pretty much been, like, hiding out. He, like, goes into, like, foreign interests, love to launder their money in this building, and he loves breaking into empty places. And so he was just, the last thing he remembered before waking up at Stark's company is making dinner about a week ago, and that nobody should have known that he was crashed there. He opens the door and he sees Stark. He gets tased and his goons take him away. It's like, he doesn't really have any goons. He doesn't have money for goons. And it's funny, they kind of bring that up. And it's like, I don't have goons. And Riri's like, yeah, he doesn't have money for that shit either. And I love how this is an important bit. It might not seem it at first, but the thing is, Riri doesn't have the living laser uh, in a controlled kind of setting with this. Like, she is in his mind, but you see him talking with them as well. He's not like imprisoned or locked away in like some subset of his mind. They also do need him to provide context of what they are seeing and what's kind of going on. And she's talking about how his memory hasn't been tampered with. You're both right. Tony Stark did kidnap you and run experiments on you. And Tony's like, what the hell was that? A life model decoy? Worse? And then they're like, living lasers, why drag me into this? And Tony's like, are you kidding? So this would happen. Everything. Look at how predictable you were. As Riri's trying to kind of diffuse it a little bit. And is like, is that supposed to be an apology? And I'm like, Laser, what the fuck? You're the one that needs to apologize? I mean, granted, something is going on, but what does Tony have to apologize for? He didn't do it. And then we see that Riri's getting better control about the rings, using them in concert, undoing the damage to Iron Man's statue. And she's talking about, like, all right, now we got to do the living laser. You ain't taking me in. And then he lays them, and then it's like, when you find out whoever does, and I thought she was your sidekick, my mistake. And when you do find who did this, I want in. And then Tony's like, did he just seriously zap us and then ask for a team up? That's kind of a dick move. And I'm like, yep. I'd say that shows a little personal growth. I'm like, a little bit. I'd go with you, Riri, on that one. Seems he was an aggrieved party. You want me to chase him, or do you need to tow back to your livery lair? And he appreciates the tow back and everything, and saying that they'll agree to disagree on the rings and everything, as he's kind of like mucking around with his helmet, which is kind of cool. And then telling her to distance herself from him, at least till we know what we're dealing with. And she asks if he knows how he was poisoned, and he's like, yep, at his AA meeting, from the coffee at least. He's supposed to... He's used to nearly being killed for a living, but not in a damn Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and it makes him very angry. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a big space to kind of invade for Tony, and that... You can feel him getting kind of pissed on that. And then he's talking about how it's got to be about the Stark Unlimited stock price, but none of the old names fit. Stain, Hammer, they're all dead. She tells him to be careful, and he's looking forward to meeting his next dead nemesis. I'm like, God damn, Tony, yeah. And saying that we go back to kind of like the whole kind of like biography kind of thing. Saying that whoever is trying to tank the stock price doesn't know that he's got a personal ace up his sleeve, a living hostile pill against a living poison pill against the hostile takeover. But the pages, he says how it's hard to write an autobiography, but like the pages flow when he's writing about and focusing on his friends. And then we get Zhong Wei, didn't have anything to do with him when he lobbied him to join the board of his first company, but he was on the board to challenge the CEO. Usually that was me, and I was always glad he did, and he liked him because unlike him, he was a self-made man and good at heart. But we see, as he's talking about this, we see that he's dead, blasted through by something. It's like, shit. And that as long as he's safe in that seat, I don't have to worry about anything. As we then see the whole blasted showing them as friends, it's like, damn, that sucks. So this person knows a lot about Tony and knows where to hit his soft points, where to make him look bad, poison him in an AA meeting, make him look like he is falling off the wagon, hit him at his most vulnerable, where he has very limited resources, is kind of back against the wall. This is a kind of smart kind of villain, and I do like this build-up of how they are able to methodically hit at Tony and showing these different kind of things. Living Laser being added to the list of a potential frenemy to help them take on this is a really kind of cool thing, and I can't wait to see how that kind of shakes out. And I do want to see how Riri and the rings shake out. That's kind of a plot that's probably just going to be going around for a little bit. The main one that I'm really interested in is to see how Tony goes after this person, what this person's objectives and end goal is going to be, and how Tony's going to have to like be able to fight against that, and what kind of help he's going to need to stop them from whatever their goals are. There's a lot of kind of cool stuff going on, and I can't wait to see what happens next. I love when you get kind of like a new creative team going into something and it just grabs you out the gate. And you're like, all right, let's see what goes on with this. Now, that's not to say that certain ones aren't bad that don't completely grab you out of the gate. You're just like, okay, let's kind of see how this works out and figure it out from there. But this started off nice, and I can't wait to see where this is going. So, those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.